This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts. Welcome, everybody, to the Skeptical Skeptics Podcast. I'm your host, RJ Metzger.
And I'm Rachel Metzger.
And we also have a special guest, Carol from Retro Late Fee.
Hey, what's up?
So if you haven't checked out their show, we have plugged them like officially. Well, actually not retro. Oh no. Yeah, you guys do. You have an ad. We did them. So you will have heard their ad, but also we talk about them all the time. So if you haven't checked them out, then listen to Carol, who probably has the best speaking voice out of the three of us. So listen to her and then realize that you're missing out if you haven't checked it out. So do you want to plug your show for a second, Carol?
Yeah, so what we do is we pretend that it's 1994 and review movies and shows and just kind of talk about the news of the time. And it's fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And if you're not following them on Twitter, you should, because they also tweet like they're from the 90s sometimes. Well, Mark specifically.
Yeah.
It's very, very funny. Yeah,
we do the 90s diary entries.
Yes, it's good. And then also the added element to that is your guys' like dating life is also a part of that as well, which is fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rachel, this week, who do we have to talk about?
Okay, there's a reason I never do this because I butcher things even worse than RJ. But we got 2 new ratings on our iTunes by Matt Winter Watson and by Eric Salas. Sorry if I said your name wrong, Eric.
Or Salas.
Or Salas. Or
Salas.
Something completely different. But thanks, guys.
Yep. And we also had a comment from Bebhin Feochadan, which talking about messing up names. I'm pretty sure I messed that one up, so sorry.
Glad that wasn't mine.
Let me know in the comments. That's actually something a lot of people have been doing lately, which is pretty nice. Is they're like, hey, you got really
you're
close.
You're really bad at this. Fix it.
Yeah. But it's nice because then I don't keep saying it for like episode after episode.
That's true.
Like Andrew Sire, I said Seer.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't right. It was Sire. Anyway, so that one worked out. Okay, so we've been talking about this episode for a while now, and what it is listener stories. So we've gathered up a bunch of listener stories that you have submitted, and by you, I mean like 7 or 8 people, and by have submitted, I mean like 1,400 of you are not submitting stories, even though we're asking like every single week.
Whoa, way to call them out, RJ.
I am, because whenever we do the third one, I would like to have a bunch more stories. So please send us your stories. We have a bunch of ways to do that. You can find us on social media at SkepSkepPod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Or you can email us skepticalskeptics@gmail.com. Find our website, skepticalskeptics.com. Or we have a voicemail number, which I don't have in front of me. So I will put it in the end of the episode. So if you're looking for that, look there. Speaking of social media, Carol, can you give them your Twitter for the show?
Sure. It is retro_Carol.
There you go. Yeah. And then Mark.
Oh, and Retro Late Fee.
Yep. And Retro Late Fee. And then Mark also from Massive Late Fee. If you have listened to that show, he also will retweet everything. So you can find them there. Okay. So the first story we have is from a friend of ours and a friend of the show, Britt from Faves of Our Lives, which Britt, I did not forget that you said you were going to record this. So now you have to hear me tell your story when it could have been you telling your own story, which would have been probably arguably better. But we're going to find out.
Throwing a lot of shade in this episode.
I'm not throwing shade. Britt was very nice. She was actually our first submitted story.
It's really cloudy in here right now.
Super nice of her to do this. And I appreciate it so much. I just wish we got to hear her.
I'm just going to tell you how you did it wrong.
Yeah, I'm just going to critique everything.
Shame on you, Brittany.
Seriously. Thanks so much, but here's how you messed up.
Okay, hold on. So, also speaking to Brittany, which I've already done for the last 30 seconds, I am still going to make that shirt for you with the design that I talked about and all that.
Oh, my shirt?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I've just been so busy with work that I've had 0 time to open up Photoshop. So I haven't forgotten. I'm still going to hook you up. It'll be a great time. If all the rest of you don't know what shirt we're talking about, just hold tight, because I don't want to sell it before I make the design, and I may quit on it. So I'm not going to sell it right now, but just hold tight on that. Okay. So Britt says, sorry, it took me a while to respond, which, by the way, it only took her like, I don't know, 2 days, and that was like 4 months ago. So she was totally in time. But anyway, she goes, I've been working 12-hour shifts. So yes, my friends and I decided one Halloween to go into what we call in Athens, Ohio, the Ridges. It is an old insane asylum. There's a ton of info online if you're interested, but a lot of the townies know everything because our grandmothers actually worked there. Ugh. Anyway, we walked around outside first and through the graveyard. Which most of the gravestones are only numbered with patient numbers.
Oh, that's sad.
That's where the first thing happened. We had a video recorder, but it only recorded us going into the graveyard. And when we came out, everything in the cemetery didn't record. It was all static, which was strange because if you weren't recording, the screen would be blue. That rules out anyone shutting off the recorder to try to be funny. We then walked outside the buildings where we found who we assumed to be an Ohio University police officer. My aunt worked for OUPD, so I talked to him and asked if we were allowed to go in. He told us any doors that were unlocked we could go into, so we did. A lot of the way through, we walked all 4 of us in a single file line. In one room, we all got this really weird feeling and heard a door slam, so we ran. When we got into a room with lighting, we saw a perfect handprint in dust on the person who was in the very back. There's no way he could have done that to himself, and he was genuinely freaked out because he didn't feel anything touch him. Ugh. Yeah, that's not ideal. Yeah, we also got a glimpse of a room that had chains and what looked like scratches on the brick wall, but I can't confirm what that was. We think we found an entrance to one of the tunnels that were used for emergency evacuation, but we never chanced going into that after what had happened.
Yeah, don't blame her.
Yeah, so far they've had the screen like freak out, not record stuff, and then they've had a handprint appear on somebody's back.
And a door slam.
And a door slam. That is like... How did they not just get the hell out?
Right? I wouldn't have even gone in.
Well, yeah, first of all.
A huge
but
wuss,
then this stuff's going down. Okay, but this kind of begs the question, right? If you go to a place like this, do you actually want stuff to happen? Or do you know what I mean?
I think you kind of do. I mean, otherwise you're just wasting your time.
Yeah, you don't want to walk out of there and be like, it was lame.
Right.
It's true.
You want something to happen. But it's like, I think it's one of those like... It's kind of, okay, the way I think of it is like when you go on a really big, scary roller coaster. Like you obviously went to the roller coaster to ride a roller coaster, but when you're about to go down that first drop, like you have that feeling of like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. When
but
actually
that's kind of what gets you going back though. Yeah.
Right. But actually you do. And then once you do it, it's awesome. But that's where it changes because it's not awesome when you experience really scary stuff. It's like, I really want this to happen, but I'm also terrified. And then when it does happen, you're like, oh no, I'm scarred for life now.
Right. All right, so she goes on to say, we eventually found our way back out. We were looking for the stain. I'll explain in the next message, she says, but got too freaked out to continue. When we left, I called my aunt to tell her about our experience. She informed us that none of the doors should have even been unlocked because the building is set up to keep people in. If a door closes behind you, it won't open back up from that side. You're essentially trapped. The cop was messing with us, assuming that all doors were locked as they should have been. As I said, we were searching for the stain. The stain was produced by a patient with the name of Margaret Schilling wandering into an attic room. The door locked behind her and nobody found her for a few weeks. When found, she had taken off all of her clothes, sat them on the windowsill, and laid in the middle of the floor. The decay of the body stained the floor. Ugh. The university, having purchased the building to turn into a student museum, and there are talks of an apartment building, tried to both paint and relay concrete, but the stain continues to come back no matter what they try. Sorry for the overload of info. I just wanted you to know the full story to decide if you were still interested in discussing the story. I'll also send a picture of the stain and the tuberculosis ward, which we went into, and it was really creepy despite nothing happening to us in that area. We will share those pictures, hopefully, if we're decent about social media this week.
I don't know why you're pointing at me.
Because, babe, it's
when you
your
say
job.
Yeah, right. When you say we, you mean me, right?
Yes, you. And you just don't do it. You don't listen.
This is seriously.
You don't post.
What is your deal tonight?
I don't know. I'm just bitter, I guess. I'm just tired.
Anyways, let's talk about the story.
Yeah.
Rather than your weird hatred for me.
Super creepy. So the stain I saw on TV once, I think. Maybe with Douche Bagans.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
That show is always background noise for me. I don't actually watch it that well.
Relaying concrete and painting. It just keeps showing up. Ugh.
That's insane.
I can't imagine the feeling after you left and then your aunt's like, yeah, you weren't supposed to be in there. You should have gotten locked in.
Yeah.
That, like, claustrophobia big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank God they didn't. Oh.
Yeah, total freak out moment. Okay.
As Brittany likes so much, I don't like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like any of that.
That's the catchphrase. Yeah. So thank you, Britt, for sharing. That is super terrifying. Another thing I would like to know is if you're totally bought in to like paranormal stuff, or if you've kind of like you're on the fence about it, or what? Because Britt like has always listened and really likes the show, but I don't think I've ever just straight asked her if she totally believes or not. So interesting there. Okay, so let's go into, I think Carol's story would be a good time to do that.
Like right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is back when I was a teenager. I was dating this guy, Matt, and he said that his house was haunted, whatever. I didn't really believe that. But we used the Ouija board pretty frequently, and weirdly, it always worked. I've tried to use it other times, other places, and never had it work other than in his house. And it was me and him and his sister and her friend this one time where it started moving really, really fast. And it moved so fast that it actually flung out from underneath our hands.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was like moving on its own and then off the board. And at one point we had asked, like, give us a sign that you're there. It lifted up his sister's friend's hair. Like it looked like somebody grabbed it and it was just kind of like hanging out. You know what
gosh.
I mean? Yeah. It was really creepy. And like, you have to say goodbye for every person who's playing and every spirit that's there. So we put the thing back on and we're like, goodbye, goodbye. And it just kept going and going and going for like ever with goodbye. It was so freaky. It's like, how many spirits are here? Or is it just refusing to say goodbye? So that was like probably the scariest incident that we had. But there were other times that it was just not cool. Like it said, one time it was saying to worship it.
Whoa.
Yeah. Or another time it said, and I was not pregnant, but it said I was pregnant with it.
My gosh.
Why would we continue to use this board? I don't know, but
because you're teenagers.
Right. So yeah. And then there was one time that when I left, I just had this really creepy feeling, like, you know, that you feel like you're being watched. Mm-hmm. And when I got home and I went to get out of my car, all my doors locked. And I was just like trapped in the car for a minute. And I was like,
oh my gosh,
freaked because I thought the spirit came with me. I mean, you know, because it was always there and it was mostly the same people. Probably people think somebody was moving the board and it's all in your head. But the time when it was moving without us even touching it, that just shows me that it was real for me.
That is absolutely insane. Oh my gosh.
That's crazy.
So wait, the really bad one where like the hair lifted and the thing was moving, was that not the last time you did this? Like, did you do it again?
We did it one more time after that.
Jeez.
And we took a long break, but it's almost kind of like addicting. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, I bet.
Well, you just want to find out more information, right? It's like, you want to see what else can happen, kind of thing.
That's nuts. Have you ever felt like, other than the car locking thing, have you ever felt like maybe it like followed you around beyond that, or no?
No, not other than that.
That's lucky.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So, are you? So me and Rachel have both had some paranormal experiences, which we'll talk about as well. But like, we still kind of go back to, I don't know though. Like, so are you fully like in the camp of like, ghosts are real, or do you kind of wonder like what that was?
I believe that there's a spirit world. I don't believe necessarily in ghosts the way that most people believe in ghosts. Like, because I'm also very, very much, I'm a Christian. And so I believe in heaven and hell and angels and demons. And I think that spirits might hang out for a little bit before they move on. But I think a lot of it might be angels and demons too.
Right.
So.
And do you think that one
I don't
was
think
a demon?
Everybody who dies is a ghost.
Right. Yeah, we're with you on that. So do you think that was a demon then?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it, right?
Yeah.
That's insane. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good story. And have you had anything else paranormal happen to you?
We spent a lot of time like talking about ghost hunting and doing the Ouija board. And we did the Ouija board many, many times, and it wasn't always all scary and freaky. But But no, I mean, I had times when I would get freaked out, but I think it was because I spent so much time thinking about it, like watching scary stuff, researching, So, yeah, I'd get it in my head, but those are the only times that I was really, truly like convinced something was happening and not just, I'm creeping myself out.
Yeah, no, definitely. We've been saying since episode 1 that we're going to do a ghost hunt, but I guarantee Rachel's going to freak out because we've been talking about it for too long.
I would freak out no matter what.
You totally should, though. It would be so fun.
Oh, we're going to. It's going to be the hard launch of our YouTube channel.
If peeing my pants is fun, then I guess.
It is for everyone else but you.
Yeah, it'll be fun for all of us, Rachel.
Exactly.
I'm like the person that I'm literally the person that at haunted houses, the people follow around because they can scare me over and over and over again.
Okay.
My likelihood of screaming and running away, legitimately just running and being gone is so high. It's not even funny.
It's terrible.
But we'll see.
I can't buy in on haunted houses. I just have a hard time with them.
Yeah.
I just don't like people jumping out. I think for me, it's because I know it's coming. It's the anticipation that I get all built up. And then when it happens, it's they got me.
Yeah.
The other problem was they're just I don't know what it is. There are some that are really, really good. There are just other ones where it's you can just tell it's an actor just trying to have a good time. And I just can't get past that. I really can't. I don't know.
Have you heard of that one in San Antonio where it's 13 floors, and if you get all the way to the 13th, you get your money back because it's so terrifying?
I know. And those are the things that's I don't know. I feel like I could do it, but I also don't. I just don't want to. It's not fun.
There's also ones where there's you basically run out into a cornfield and they're allowed to touch you. You sign a waiver.
You sign a waiver. Yeah.
Hiding in cornfields, just people ready to attack you.
Yep.
Yeah,
so if you guys
got them like that here too.
Ugh.
Yeah. So as listeners, if you guys want to get together, have our first trip as skeptical skeptics to a corn maze.
Minus Rachel.
I'll
stay home with my kids.
Yeah, nobody wants to be cleaning pee out of the
watch happy movies.
Exactly. Okay.
When I was a kid, my dad took me to a haunted house, and they separated us. I was a kid.
Oh no.
Oh my god.
That's not okay.
No, they were only one person at a time, and he's just wait for me at the other side of the door. But then I got so scared I ran.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Understandably.
And so eventually he found me with the one lady who took pity on me. She was dressed as a spider. She put me on her lap and she was it's okay, honey.
My God.
Oh man, that's worse.
It's traumatizing.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I have a story by Andrew Sire that he sent in to us. He said, I grew up in northern North Dakota in the Turtle Mountains. They're more like hills. North Dakota doesn't have mountains. And I return often to go hunting and fishing. I've seen every animal up there that you typically see, as well as some that are very rarely seen in that region. Elk, wolves, bears, mountains. Sorry, mountains.
Yeah, the rare mountain animal.
Mountain lions. Last November during deer season, I had an experience that made my hair stand straight up. It was early evening and I had settled into an old camper that we converted into a deer blind.
By the way, super envious of that because I do not have that on my land.
I found it odd that no deer were showing up since they had been consistently showing up about an hour before legal hunting time ended. I started hearing heavy footsteps in the trees behind the camper, and I thought maybe it was one of my family members coming to join me or ask for help with butchering a deer. The steps crunching in the brush and the snow kept getting louder, so I opened the back door expecting to see someone in blaze orange approaching the camper, but I saw no one, and the footsteps stopped. Ugh. I sat back down and the footsteps continued. Then an overwhelming smell that I would describe as a skunk, but way worse, filled the air. Then I heard a blood-curdling scream that sounded like a singer in a death metal band. I like his descriptions. Mm-hmm. I grabbed my rifle and I fired a shot in the air out the back door of the camper, and I sprinted to my ATV as quickly as I could. I did not tell anyone at deer camp about my experience because they know I'm into Bigfoot and things like that, and I would have just been given a hard time. But everyone commented that I looked like I had seen a ghost. I never actually saw what it was. There's a good chance it could have been just someone messing with me. But the smell, it's not uncommon for us to be out in the woods for a few days without a shower, but that was no body odor. I also never found any footprints beside the camper, and I have no clue how else it even got to the camper. So there's my Bigfoot story.
Yeah, so when I read this legitimately gave me chills.
Can you imagine? That would be terrifying.
Yeah.
No. Oh my God.
I don't mess with the woods. I'm not a
I do mess with the woods.
I don't because I have a very unhealthy fear of the things that live out there. So the idea of anything being there, like even if it was a bear or a mountain lion or whatever, is scary enough. But like the idea of it being Bigfoot is even.
Well, like he said, like going back to the smell, like that's such a classic Bigfoot thing. But like that's something that I think, like he said, like I think he could rationalize away a couple things. But once you get hit with that like otherworldly smell, like you can't say it's a prank anymore. You know, like nobody just carries around supreme skunk odor.
Right.
Unless someone was really dedicated and like rolled around in something really gross.
Yeah, but then like at deer camp, like people would have like, it just doesn't go away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. I know. I'm just saying like that's the only way that would make any sense.
Until he got to the smell part, that's what I was thinking, especially once he mentioned like he's into Bigfoot. Like, well, clearly someone was messing with him, right? But then it was the smell. Like that is, that's terrifying. So Andrew, I am very curious. Are you planning on going out to deer hunt in the same spot this upcoming deer season? If so, are you nervous? And please put out video cameras. Like I would love to see that. But yeah, I mean, I go to the woods frequently, and I think if I ever had a real Bigfoot encounter, like it would probably change how I felt about it. Like think about that. Would you ever go camping again?
I will literally not go camping out in the woods in a tent.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it anyway. For sure.
Right. Like there are way too many things that can hurt me or mess with me. Even just like
I just
snakes.
think it's gross.
Yeah, thank you.
I want when it's hot, but if it's cold, I'll be out there. I could live out there indefinitely. Like I adore it.
Except for like, you know, internet and football games and video games.
Hey, my land now has cell phone coverage and 4G LTE. So what up?
There you go.
Yeah, I watched the Super Bowl while out there. It was a great time.
Anyways,
and I got roared at by a bear.
Which is why I don't do that.
Super not cool. Okay, so the next story is by Alicia Napo. She was kind enough to send it to us in multiple Facebook voicemails, which was a very clever way for her to solve the problem that our voicemail line sucks. So thank you again, Alicia, for doing that. Although if you guys hear like about every minute there's like a chop cut, it's because Facebook only allowed her to do 1 minute at a time. So that's why you're going to hear that. But thanks again, Alicia, for sending us your story.
Hey guys. Well, I just left you a voicemail. You can completely disregard it because I don't think it recorded. Or if you did, you only got a partial of the story. So I'm going to tell it to you on here and try and stay in chronological order. So this is the first one, and this is about when I just recently moved to California, and my boyfriend's got a family friend who was a medium. And I'm like, oh, okay, she's a medium, right? Then her and I finally had a one-on-one, and this was, we were talking about she had a really bad accident and blah, blah, blah. And I asked her if she ever felt like she lost her gift. She goes, yes, it was after my accident. But she said, I thought it was out of retaliation from God because I wasn't using my gift right. And then she told me this story. So she tells me years ago, she says, this goes back to Laci Peterson. She said years ago, she was in the kitchen and her husband was alive at the time. And she said she saw Scott Peterson on the TV and she wasn't really listening, but she goes, oh, that guy killed his wife. And Danny, who was her husband, goes, no, his wife and his kid are missing. And she goes, oh no, he killed them. So fast forward to, one night, she hears walking in the kitchen. She gets up out of bed, and she sees Laci Peterson walking around in her kitchen, walking around the kitchen table, going, where's my baby? I can't find my baby. I can't find my baby. And she goes, Laci, your baby is in heaven. God comes down to grab the babies, but you have to go toward the light. She went on to talk about how Laci told her that if you look at pictures, you can see her where she was sitting on the bed. And she said it was a couple days before Christmas, and she was sitting on the bed, and she was talking about how she was stressed about the holidays and how Scott came up behind her and was like going to rub her shoulders like he was going to relieve tension, but he ended up wrapping his hands around her neck and choking her. Okay. So then she tells me that she's working And she says that she hears, she gets this gaze upon her eyes, and everybody at work just knows that something's coming in. Like she has like almost like a "that's so Raven" look, you know. And she sits at her computer, and everyone goes, "Bambi, what did you see?" She says, I see rocks, and somebody hands her a piece of paper, and she starts drawing things out. She says, I see rocks and broken up concrete, and there's a knoll, like a grassy knoll, but there's water. I see water coming up, and that's where Lacey is. Lacey is there, and she said, God, I had every intent to call the police and tell them, this is where, because I think she was found in Burbank. She said, I feel like I was supposed to call, but I guess a bunch of psychics and other crackpots were calling the news and telling them, this is what they're seeing and this is where she is. And it was just dead leads. And she goes, I never called. And like 2 days later, they found her in the place that she was. And she said, after that, I thought that I lost my gift. Because a couple years later, she got into an accident. She got into a car accident, and she was like, this is a side note. She was driving, and she said that she saw a bright white light in the passenger seat, and she, that they told her to put her foot on the brake. She's going to be okay, but she's going to be in an accident. And a highway patrolman pretty much T-boned her car, and she was out for a little while, but she said that she didn't see anything or hear anything. She had no visions, no nothing. And she said that she thought it was God retaliating, that she didn't use her gift right, that, Lacey came to her and told her what happened, and she didn't do it right. But yeah, that story I had such goosebumps hearing about it, and I'm thinking, how? I think it's really interesting. The crazier thing is she has a granddaughter, and she says, I think she has the gift, because her name's Shawnee. She's like, I think Shawnee has the gift, because there are some times where she's like, Grandma, Nana, it's happening. And she goes, all right, well, just hold my hand. Just hold my hand. Is there anything that you want to talk about? Is it something that you want to talk about? What happened? She says, no. But wow. She also told, this is another side note, but she also told, my boyfriend's parents both died kind of young. Like their mom died at 47, and their father died a year later or a year before. I can't remember which, but just a year in between each other. And it wasn't that long ago. He was 18. He's 42 now. But the girls, his sisters, went to Bambi and asked her, what, can we get in touch with my parents? They were able to get in touch with their mom, and they said that their mom is always around. There's 4 kids, and she says that she's always with somebody, whoever needs her the most, and she goes and reports back to their dad. Her dad's always in the background, like almost like in a different dimension or something. And she goes back and reports to their dad. What a freaking wild thing. So whenever I'm alone in the house and I'm picking my nose, I'm thinking, God, is she watching me? What if she's in this house today?
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So, the Lacey Peterson thing is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Especially because it's just so big. It was such a big deal.
It was, yeah. And it was all over the news, and she knew about it somehow. So I've been on the show saying, I really don't buy into the whole psychic thing, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if it started somewhere and then a bunch of people just profited off of it.
Of course, yeah.
Right. But I've never seen truly convincing stuff about a psychic, but if this is real, that's, yeah, what can you say about it? That it's jaw-droppingly, well, and it also would make you change your perspective on things, or at least a lot of people, the whole mom reporting back to the dad thing, and the dad's not there, but the mom can traverse
that's
space and
interesting.
time. I don't know what to make of it. That's crazy.
I just think of the little girl, if it's real, if there are mediums and if they really do have these visions, can you imagine as a little girl, like
how terrifying that is?
coping with that? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be terrible.
Like Haley Joel Osment did a really good job in The Sixth Sense of selling it, but but like truly seeing a child like have to deal with that, like that's heavy. Well, like in the first listener story episode, Javi talked about, you wouldn't know because you don't listen, right?
No, I don't.
Javi talked about this little boy that had the same thing and like told him about his aunt's death. Before.
Oh, I think I've actually heard that story.
Yeah, from him.
I mean, I'm
sure.
related to the man, so.
So yeah, those are the only two. Those are the only two things I can think of. That's like, I mean, no explanation. Like that just psychics. Like I said, it's so hard because it's so monetized, you know, and it's so like over the top fake.
Also, there's like no way to prove it. Really? Right. I mean, this is the closest you can get to
actually,
proof.
That's even the worst part is like. If you set them aside and tried to get them to prove it, they couldn't, right?
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Like, because there's like that $1 million challenge, the Randy challenge, and like nobody's won that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. That's pretty nuts. So what do you think about psychics, Carol?
I mean, it seems like maybe 1 in 1,000 is for real.
Right.
I'm sure some people have some gifts. Like I have a family member who, you know, says that she has, you know, seen spirits and feels things. You know, I've talked to a lot of people who have had experiences that it seems like, you know, for real, but how do you know?
So before we go on, I forgot to mention that is a listener named Leisha Napo, and she's really funny. So the two parts that made me laugh are obviously the picking my nose part, but also that's so Raven face. Like
so real.
Yeah. So I was traveling for work, and I was like alone in like this room in a Amazon warehouse, and I was like listening to this to try to, as she was sending it in, because like it was a riveting story, and like when those two parts came on, I laughed so loud. Somebody came in and checked in on me. Like they were like, "Are you okay?" Because they thought I was like dying. But yeah, so thank you, Leisha, so much for sending that in. That was a really, really good story. But yeah, I think the other part behind the whole psychic thing is like, I really feel like the people that do actually have like a gift or something, like probably isn't as like strong as they may say it is, or like as specific as they may say it is.
Right, yeah.
But they have to make like cognitive leaps to get it there. Mm-hmm. And that's probably where like they get into trouble, right? Is like there actually are people who have this, like, for whatever reason, innate ability to kind of see more than the average person, but then they like overstep and overguess. And I think that's probably part of it.
Also, I think a lot of the people who fake it are just really good at reading people. Like they're good at like knowing what you would want to hear, that kind of stuff.
Or even like not necessarily faking it. Like, okay, when I was like 12, in middle school, this girl had the same name as me. It was just slightly off, and we got each other's report cards. We were always by each other lines and stuff, and lockers are next to each other. And one day she walked by me, and I just got this like terrible feeling that something's wrong. Mm-hmm. And so I stopped her, and I was like, you know, are you okay? And she started crying and told me she was like about to go kill herself. Now, is that psychic premonition, or is that just reading people? I mean, you know, you can make things bigger than they are.
Exactly. Yeah. Like if you were to suddenly turn that into a career, right? Like then, yeah, and you'd be totally overguessing. Well, and there's also just like a lot of elements of biology that we still don't fully grasp. Like you could have, you know, literally detected like her pheromone difference, because especially if you guys were physically in contact, or like one of the things as far as quote unquote psychic stuff that I've always found super interesting is dream sharing with people who are really close to you. Mm-hmm. You've heard of this?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like if you physically sleep in proximity to somebody, like you can have the same dreams. And again, like what's the line for coincidence? But it's just it's such a weird thing to think about, you know, like if our brains and communication can happen in a realm that like we can't even close to define, you know, it's just such a weird thing to think about.
You know, that actually happened to me too. I'm sorry, am I talking too much?
No, that's why you're here. Talk.
My mom and I had the same dream one time, like across the hall from each other. We both woke up crying because we both dreamed that I died.
Oh, wow.
And like, yeah, I dreamt that like I was dying, and she dreamt that she was there watching it.
See, that is exactly what I'm talking about. That is like the exact thing, like that. There is no way you could tell me that that's a coincidence, you know?
Right.
And both of you waking up from it, like, because it was such a visceral dream, not like for you it was visceral. And then for her, she was like, oh yeah, you know, that sounds like maybe a dream I had. Like, no, it was both, like both of you.
Yeah, we both woke up.
So
went to each
and
other.
clearly you weren't dying. So it's not like you had a shared experience. Like, yeah, I can't put my mind on that like that. Well, and the, or like the twin connections, like those types of things too. They really trip me out.
So I'm like a really empathetic person to kind of a ridiculous point. RJ knows this. And I've had a lot of moments in my life where I've been able to like you said about that other girl, where I can like tell when people are upset, even if they're not acting like it. Or like, I remember I would have moments when I was younger in high school, and I'd like sit in my house and I'd be like, I'd like feel like someone was hurting or something. And then one of my friends would call me and talk to me about something bad that happened to them or things like that. So I always think about that, because like feelings are obviously extremely strong when it comes to like animals in general, but us, right? Like we can read each other's feelings through like pheromones and things like that, but also obviously by your facial expressions and stuff like that. But it's just interesting, like people who are especially in tune to emotion and to the way people feel, obviously
and then turn that into also an attunement to a specific person.
Yes,
yeah,
right.
like on
That
top
person,
of that.
like you know what that person's mannerisms are like and like things like that. It's interesting to kind of think like how you would then be able to predict things or tell things that normal people wouldn't be able to, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, well, and really, it's just like the line between science and magic. Like where does the line really like end?
Yeah.
Right? Like if the science is really so like far advanced and hard to explain, like it becomes magic. It's the same thing like this. Like where does someone's like actual ability to read somebody and like be empathetic and pick up on these cues that everyone else really has access to but just don't get? Like where does that stop and where does premonition begin, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like we did an episode where we talked about how Abraham Lincoln and this other dude from England like pretty much saw their death coming. Like, I just don't know. There's a lot to that. It's very hard to guess. Also, Leisha did say, because we did the Filipino folklore episode, and she mentioned that, quote, I'm Italian, and whenever there was a room my family didn't want the kids to go in, there was always a monster in there, and they would call it Momoni, Mumoni. But I looked it up, and I don't know if I'm spelling it wrong or if it's just a thing my family made up, but that's my relation to the Filipino tales, she said. So, so if you happen to be Italian, or if your family ever used the Momoni against you, let us know. That way we can let Leisha know that she either had a super normal childhood or a super abnormal childhood.
No, but I just love that this all comes back to the fact that parents lie to their kids, so they'll do what they say.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of which, and this actually reminded me too that Becky, my sister, whenever she listened to the episode, the Filipino folklore one, she goes, "Oh, did you talk about the Momo?" Which is what my mom always said is like the monster in the room, just like Leisha had. So the Momoni for the Filipinos is the Momo, and she always tells my son about it. My son does not care at all about the Filipino monster. He just goes there.
He cares about bugs though.
He does care
if
about
I tell
bugs.
him there's bugs somewhere dark or monsters in it, then he won't go there.
He won't go,
which is nice.
Anyway, so now we've got a story from JT Tatum. So JT Tatum actually is the one who shared the San Antonio railroad story with us that Rachel did a while back. So listen to that first. But anyway, so he said, so I've been there. So he sent this after we put the episode out, by the way. He goes, no handprints, but we purposely parked my car tire, obviously in neutral, in a pothole, and the car was stopped completely for probably 10 to 15 seconds and then started to move and rolled over the tracks. You park before them. He says if you watch YouTube on it, people have laser leveled it and it is downhill for sure, but does not look like it. Also, to get over the tracks, that part is for sure uphill, so it's pretty trippy. And yeah, so I think in that episode we talked about how like this is like an urban legend that's kind of picked up steam.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, people have definitely had solid contact out there. The whole baby handprints and baby powder and stuff, like people have pictures. So I'm not going to say we can deny it, but yeah, it's just, that's absolutely crazy to think about. I mean, could you imagine like parking your car somewhere and then it starts to freaking move? Like, that is a level of like pants.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Because that's not.
crap your pants.
Oh yeah, we're on Canadian radio, RJ.
Well,
you can't say that.
We might. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and that's something that's like, it's what, because, we always talk about like the whole people, when you go somewhere purposely looking for things to happen, obviously there's a lot more likely things will happen, right? Like that's just because you're listening for it and you're in tune to it and you're more whatever. And anything that happens must be paranormal. Like it can't just be like,
Right.
oh, that was probably a rat. It has to be, it was a ghost. But this is different. This is your car physically moving. Like this isn't just like, oh, we all thought we saw the same thing. Or
Right,
we all thought we
right.
heard the same thing. Like, no, this is your car.
And it's clearly repeatable because people do it a lot.
right.
Yeah. Very interesting. All right, Rach.
Definitely.
So finally, for the first time in our entire 35 episode backlog, you get to tell a scary story about yourself.
So I have a few. I don't know which one you want me to tell.
Whatever you're, what do you want to ease into it? Or you want to come in with a bang? It's up to you.
I mean, I don't know if any of mine are like huge.
They're not. Spoiler alert.
There's one that I don't know if I've told you about. You were there for it, but I don't know if I told you about it.
You probably did, but go for it. That sounds interesting.
So what concert was it?
Yeah, you told me about this. It was
It was in Corpus.
Story of the Year.
It's the Story of the Year?
Mhm.
Okay. So when we were in college, we went to a concert and we stood up, like we were literally standing next to the ginormous speakers, which of course everyone at concerts like goes half deaf by the end of it, right? But we were like especially like the most deaf you can be.
Other than deaf.
Okay. Yeah. Well, while still being a hearing person. Okay.
I don't know if that's a PC term,
so,
but
while still being able to hear, is that okay
Yeah, sure,
to
there you
say?
go.
Okay. So we went back to RJ's apartment, and for some reason, it ended up where me, you, and Becky were all sleeping in the same bed.
probably just crashed out talking about the concert.
Probably. And I was on the edge. I remember this is why this mattered. I was on the edge. So I was on the edge and we were all like squished, and it was a queen size bed. So it's like 3 humans like squished onto this bed. So we were really close to each other. And at the beginning, I had my back to you, and obviously like my ears were ringing and I wasn't hearing very well, but I kept hearing someone whispering to me. And when I would turn around and ask RJ what he was saying, half the time, I woke him up like 3 times. He was getting really mad at me, but I was so sure he was talking to me because I was like through the ringing, I would hear like someone talking and whispering. And so, yeah, I kept asking him, what are you saying? What are you saying? And then finally I just kind of stopped asking him. And then I turned over to where my back was to whatever, your room. There was no one behind me. And it kept happening. But it wasn't in front of me because I could look right at you. One time I actually like heard talking and I opened my eyes and I was staring at you and you were asleep. But like it was legit. And I don't remember it actually being real words. I just remember like the sound of like someone whispering like that.
Ooh, ASMR, skeptical skeptics. There you go.
Also kind of creepy because I'm talking about something creepy.
So
I don't know how much of that has to do with the fact that like
it's got to be your ears getting damaged. Like
I
that's
don't
just
know
what
though,
that
but
is.
it was just so consistent. But the problem was it lasted for about 5 or 10 minutes and then it went away. It wasn't all night, and it hadn't happened before then. Like we had all been talking and I was totally fine, and then we all started to go to sleep and you guys fell asleep, and then about 15 or 20 minutes later, that's when it started. It happened for about 5 to 10 minutes and then it completely stopped.
Yeah, that's weird. I liked the other story better, but
Which other one? It was a short story. I can tell another one.
yeah, tell another one. Go
I
for
have
it.
2 other ones that are like,
Well, don't shoot every shot.
well, I
Right
mean,
now,
neither. The
you
other
know.
2, I don't know. One of them was not that great. Anyways, so my sister was supposed to tell this story, Jen.
Jen,
Thanks, Jen.
by the way,
But she did not. So I'll
it was
tell
like
it.
3 months ago. She was like, "Hey, I got this." She did not have this.
So my sister was living in downtown Denver when she's 8 years older than me. And I was like 15 or 16. And me and my mom came to visit her, and they lived in this studio apartment. And I wish she was telling this because I don't actually know what the place is, but it's actually they turned it into an apartment building, but it used to be an old hospital. And they even had one of those like spires is that what it's called? In the middle of it, where they used to take the dead bodies and burn them. where
Not
it's like
Spire.
No, it's like really tall. It's just like a tall. It's all it's for is for that, and then like
An incinerator?
the smoke would come out at the top.
Well, damn. Okay, sure.
I don't know, but yeah, it was in the middle. It was like in a courtyard, and the whole thing was super industrial. Like there was all the walls were brick, and then in the top you could see all the piping and stuff. So it was already like echoey, and like the floors were concrete. So it was like echoey and kind of like eerie, right? And it was a old hospital, so obviously nobody loves that. I mean, it was a cool apartment, but it was creepy. So the first night we were there, I think me and my mom were sleeping on an air mattress because she had a studio apartment. She only had one bed. And we were sleeping probably near her kitchen because that's the way it worked. And we were 4 or 5 feet away from her kitchen table. And at 3:00 in the morning, we just heard this really loud crash. And we all woke up all at the same time. We were like, what was that? And we looked over and our suitcase was knocked over, which had been near the table, and then a chair was pushed. But the problem was the suitcase had fallen over the opposite direction of where the chair was. Because at first my mom was like, "Oh, the suitcase just knocked the chair over," but it didn't. They weren't near each other. And it wasn't knocked towards the chair; it was knocked away from it. And also the chair was super far away from the table, had been moved 2 feet away from the table. It wasn't just this little it was really far.
That's terrifying because what if it was one of those people that's hiding in the air vents just to eat your sister's food? Oh, I was and he was oh crap, she has guests, and had to hightail it back out.
I would be afraid of that, but her ceilings were insanely high.
Oh, really?
If someone was hiding in the air ducts, they would have to do acrobatics to get down and get back up. They'd have to be a professional
do, Mission
gymnast.
Impossible every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
that's super creepy. Mm-hmm. Physical manipulation is another one that's just I can't deny it. It's happened in my life, right? So what the hell is it?
Also, those are, I think, the scariest. It's one thing to hear noises and things like that, but it's another to know that
it can manipulate
some
suitcase
whatever's
and a
out
chair.
there is capable of moving things.
That's serious. That's not a freaking piece of paper getting blown across.
Yeah. I know. Pretty crazy.
Okay, so Carol's got a story from Melina Powlin, which actually I think Melina is the oldest story in here. I think we got this all the way back in February or March. We were going to do an episode on this story, but it's actually really hard to find info on it. So we were kind of just waiting it out to see if we, could get a couple more articles on it. But then once we decided we were going to do a second listener story episode, we thought it might be better for this. So thank you, Melina, for sharing this. Hopefully you hear this. I haven't heard from you.
It took so long.
Yeah, it's been 4 months, so sorry. But we were excited to tell the story.
Okay, so from Melina Powell. Hello, RJ and Rachel. I was currently listening to your podcast on the Black Shuck. When you brought up the churches, it reminded me about this church in New York that many consider evil. It is Christ Church Linden Tree Preschool, or was. I would love to explain the history of it. Please message me if you're interested. So this church is a bit old. It has burnt down and the fire killed some people. Many years it was rebuilt. My cousin and I would often help out, seeing their mom worked there. Often you would feel negativity in the air, mainly in the back staircase exit. In the actual church area where we often helped, by moving boxes of donations and decor, the lights would be low and calming. But the scary part was the top banister. Mind you, this is a cathedral, so it has that fancy look. No one could reach that area, but my cousin and I would often see a man watching us. He didn't look at all like the priest or anyone we knew, which was everyone in there. He would watch us with a stern face, then disappear behind the curtain. If you went upstairs, there were 2 classrooms, both for preschool and ballet classes. I often felt like there was someone always watching me. Doors would slam and voices would be heard, but no one else would be there. In the play area space, which was another room, was often filled with people, but after hours, when no one was there, you would often hear footsteps. Years later, we no longer helped, and that was a good thing because, again, the church killed another person, a lawyer. It is said the cross fell on top of the roof and stabbed him. I'm not sure if that is exactly how he died, but now the church and school is no longer open to anyone. The scariest part was the back exit by the offices. It felt like someone was always coming down the stairs, or when you were walking down, they were breathing on the back of your neck. Ooh.
The whole guy just standing there staring at them thing. Oh my gosh.
I mean, are there many places scarier than old churches?
No, there really aren't. That. It's one of the scarier places you can be. they're just like, I think they're echoey, right? Like that's a problem. They're shadowy because of like stained glass and like where they put windows in odd places. It's just
So there's something about Jesus that brings Satan. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like there's something about being in a holy place that's like, okay, but where's Satan?
Yeah.
Like, where is he hiding?
right. So Melina, thank you again for sharing that. We tried to look into it, and your story was honestly the best one we found.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything else.
Yeah, like we couldn't find anything that even touched how good that was, so we decided to just share it as your listener story. So again, thank you for the wait on that one. But yeah, that sounds like a very creepy place. Okay, so we're going to take a quick ad break, which is going to be a show that I highly recommend, even though I don't know what it is right now. So listen to the ad and check it out.
On Is It Philosophy, we are not going to explore the philosophers of long forgotten. We'll not ponder Plato or Socrates. There's so many podcasts out there for that, if that's what you're seeking. This is something different. A place where all ideas are welcome. An open forum to talk about anything and everything. We take an idea and work to find an answer. It may not always be the most insightful, so come and listen with an open mind. Who knows, you may like what we have to say. So come and enjoy and ask yourself, is it philosophy?
So I want to take a moment to talk about Podcoin. It's a new app that's out there that actually pays you to listen to podcasts, which, considering you're listening to our podcast, I would think maybe you're interested in this. For every 10 minutes that you listen to it, you're going to get something called a Podcoin, which you can use to rack up gift cards or stuff for charity. So like we do calories for dogs, or like dog food, as Rachel so adamantly wants me to call it, but they count it in calories. And so dadgummit, we've donated like 9,000 calories to pups. It's pretty great. So no other podcast app lets you do that. So check it out. Podcoin, use our promo code SKEP, SKEP, all caps, no spaces, and you'll get 300 free Podcoins for your session with Podcoin. Cool. All right. So we're going to listen to Mark's story. If you know it, Carol, then just wait for us because we haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah, I'll listen to it anyway. I'm sure I've heard it. But
okay, so I highly doubt that this will be one of your more entertaining stories here. But the weird thing that happened to me was I was probably around 14 years old or so. My parents were divorced, and I was at my dad's house in the basement. He was upstairs, I think probably sleeping, and I was watching some TV show down there. I had a deck of cards in front of me that I was sort of just kind of playing around with, and I decided to see if I could figure out what the top card on the deck was. So I shuffled the cards up real well, didn't even look at them while I was shuffling, tried to make sure that there was no way that I could cheat in this. Just shuffled them up really well and closed my eyes and then grabbed the top card off the deck. And then I put it on my forehead, and I stayed that way with my eyes closed for a long time, probably at least 20 or 30 minutes. I sat there like that. It was almost like a meditative state. And I was just concentrating on the card, just sort of trying to see through my forehead, basically, while my eyes were closed. And then it was the weirdest thing that I've ever experienced. In my mind, there was a picture, and it was black with a bunch of mist, and then the mist kind of parted, and I could see Queen of Spades. So I looked at the card, and it was the Queen of Spades. So I put it down, and then I closed my eyes, and I grabbed the next card off the deck, and this time it happened almost instantly. 7 of diamonds, and I looked, and it was the 7 of diamonds. So I set it down, and then I did it a third time, and it took a little bit longer, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, but I saw 5 of hearts, and it was the 5 of hearts. And then I put them down, and I had kind of freaked myself out. Plus, I thought if I continue to do this past 3 and I start to get some wrong, thinking that maybe it was a coincidence, that it wouldn't make a good story anymore. So I thought I would stop there at 3. But I don't know what the mathematics on correctly guessing 3 random cards are in a row in a shuffled deck. but I've got to imagine it's pretty remote. That combined with the very clear picture that I saw in my head. And like I said, I'd never, I'm a writer, so I imagine things a lot in my head, and I see things that I'm writing a lot in my head, but I've never experienced a picture like that in my head. Very, very clear. And like I said, this weird mist that just parted. So that is my weird happening that happened to me. Don't really know how to explain it. Don't really know what it means. It's never happened again. I've never really tried it again. So that is my story.
Okay, did you listen to that?
Yeah.
Have you heard it before?
Yeah.
Okay, that's like probably the most interesting story, like for ours. That, like, we were just shit talking psychics, and you're married to one. What the hell? That's insane.
Yeah, that is crazy. Like, I mean, I believe him, but it seems so unbelievable. Like if I didn't know him so well, I'd be like, no way.
Oh yeah,
I wish that we had it on video.
Well, it's just So I looked it up, and the odds are. Hold on 1 second. It is 1 out of 132,600. Or
wow,
0.00008%.
Wow.
So like
that's
a percent
crazy.
of a percent of a percent,
right?
Like forever down.
Should have played the lottery.
Yeah,
Seriously.
He should have seen the smoky freaking lotto numbers come to his head. He should have held a lotto ticket to his head for real, like in that window of time.
Right.
The part to me is like he just has never tried it again, and probably to preserve the story, which again, as a writer and storyteller, makes sense to me.
Yeah, totally.
Go buy him a lotto ticket tonight, Carol. Like, just put it on his head while he sleeps, and just see, when he comes. That's
and if it doesn't work, it's fine. You just don't tell that story.
Yeah, you don't have to tell anybody. But if it does work, you don't have to tell the story because you'll be a millionaire. So
Exactly.
But that blows. I mean, could you imagine like letting that just like fester and not doing anything with that? Like, I couldn't do that.
Yeah, I think. Honestly, there's nothing I'm more like perplexed by, I guess, than like anything that comes to like weird mental stuff. Like we were kind of talking about the psychic thing, like just because, like how many times have you like I have so many times been like listening to the radio and then they'll be like the song coming up next and I'll think it and it's that song.
It's that song. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like weird stuff like that. That's like, I mean, yes, obviously there's only like 10 songs that they play, right? But still, the fact that I picked that one time is just weird. But there have also been times where I'm like, oh, maybe it's this one and it's not, and I'm wrong. But still, like it's just that kind of stuff is always interesting to me because we just have such a small comprehension of like what our brains do and the way that our brains work. We don't even know how the
brain works. Yeah,
right. That it's like that kind of stuff is so unexplainable and so interesting to me because it's like. We just have no idea. There's no explanation for any of it. Yeah.
Well, and like we've had, like weird stuff happen, or like even deja vu, or like deja vu to the point it's a deja something else preview, something, but like where you can actually like tell what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
Like those types of things. It's so weird. Like the brain is just absolutely insane. It also just blows my mind, like the simple phrase, it goes around the internet all the time, but the brain is the only organ trying to figure itself out. Like that is so true.
Right?
Okay, one time I had deja vu so hard that you know how you have deja vu and then you're like, wait, hold on, I had deja vu about this. In my deja vu, that happened.
Yeah, actually, I've had deja vu.
Like where I have deja vu, where like I see it and then like in the deja vu, I'm like, oh wait, I had deja vu about this. And then like 2 years later, I'm like, hey.
Yeah, it happened to me like literally a week ago. I had deja vu about having deja vu about being in Denver. This is the weirdest thing.
Yep.
Hate it.
So this not last story. Is it the last story?
I'm going to tell a story,
Second to last story is by Caravan Frizzell. And I have to say, this is like poetic. Like the way that Caravan writes is beautiful.
She might be a writer, so if she is, like Caravan, if you're a writer, let us know. If you're not a writer, start writing some stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so here's her story.
I have a writing degree, by the way, so like I'm not just throwing this out there. I really mean you should be a writer.
Okay. So I'd like to share a true experience I had when I was 6 or 7 years old. My parents were looking to relocate from the small house which could no longer contain the massive worldly collection of stuff and things my father had collected in his travels, as well as me and my small menagerie of pets. We had taken a day trip out to Trenton, Wisconsin, in order to look at a farmhouse that was for sale. I remember that the day was bright and warm, insects buzzing and a faint buzz from the power lines following the soft curves of the cracked road. The house was a quiet, aged, white, in an expansive yard of tired green grass and trees. I felt drawn to that house immediately, feeling a strong womanly presence of love and protection. This emotion seemed to make the environment even brighter, almost idyllic, with a hot breeze pushing a tire swing hanging from one of the nearby tree limbs. This feeling grew stronger as we wandered the property. These smaller details are all lost to me now. I just know this feeling of a mother, alien as my own, had always been cold and aloof. The realtor led us inside, and I'm sure I gleefully explored the house until I followed my father into the living room. This room I will remember in stark detail until the day I die. A clean, empty space of light, hardwood floors, and white walls. The floor was scuffed, evidence of lives lived. The walls were an off-white color, sun-kissed and warm, but the room itself was cold. That feeling I had throughout the rest of the property, I did not reside here. I was always extremely close to my father, and so I emulated everything he did. I saw him look into the closet underneath the stairs, and so I did the same. I opened the door he had closed and looked inside. I saw a pile of bloodied clothes on the floor, the image of a brown leather woman's jacket, the clearest in my mind, a soft tan, the hide supple, the blood still bright and wet and dripping. I turned to mention this to my dad, who was standing with my mother in the center of the room. As I turned, it was then I noticed the blood sprayed onto the walls. I noticed the pool of blood on the floor by my parents' feet. Only then did I notice the man standing in the doorway to the kitchen across the room from me. He was only a suggestion of a man, as he was black from head to toe. He was as solid as you or I, but featureless and ebony. The only other word I have to try to describe him is a demon. I perceived only rage from him, and the heat of that pure anger radiating from him was so strong it actually burnt my face like a bad sunburn. I felt a pressure against my chest, like he/it was trying to push me back. It seemed enraged that I could see him. I remember asking it softly, "Why is there blood on the walls?" My parents turned around to look at me, paled. My dad picked me up and took me from the house. Neither of them said a word to me until we were in the car and driving away. I looked back and recalled that the house looked like it was sagging sad. I asked my parents, couldn't we make it happy? This story was strengthened by the realtor, who explained to my parents that the previous owner had shot his wife and taken the shotgun to himself in that same living room. She had explained that at some point previous to our tour of the grounds, she wouldn't go inside the house. 14 years later, as I was getting a tattoo and in idle conversation, I told my story. The artist told me that his buddy was the son of that couple, and he was forced to drive past that house every day on his way to work. This is one of the 3 strongest paranormal experiences I've ever had in my life. My first memory is an out-of-body experience, staring down at myself, screaming in my father's old crib. And I also dreamt of my father's death before I found him at the age of 9, only a couple years after witnessing this demon/black soul/man thing, though I don't fully believe that the two are related. I'm still highly sensitive and can sense other people's emotions as well as residual energy in the building I like to explore.
Yeah, so I'm like constantly terrified that people are just like copy pasting stories and like sending them to us because this was so well written.
So good.
That, like Caravan might have been like, oh, this will be hilarious. I'll send them like a classic story that nobody's heard. But no, I mean, it's really well done.
Terrifying.
Yeah. Legitimately just like, yeah, like hair standing up on the back. I was thinking about like if I was like walking to the kitchen to get like a drink of water or something, you just see this like black freaking physically there but not featured thing. Oh my gosh. Like how do you like even encounter like darkness in your home and not freak out thinking that thing is there, you know?
Yeah,
that's like one of those like life-changing. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, although great story and written so well, the first time I read it ruined my day a little bit.
Oh yeah, there was a big like, and you like I know we're asking for scary stories here, like we're all having fun and games here, but like there's no need to do this to us. Like we're just normal people. We don't need to deal with this. Like just keep that to yourself. No, it's terrifying story.
Not even just terrifying, but sad. It's just
also sad.
So heavy.
Yeah, it's really heavy.
Also, I mean, it's just
Like, yeah, man. Okay, so I guess I'll share a story. Here's the worst part about the story, and this is why I left it for the last, because I might cut it, depending on if I already shared this in the first episode, because I don't remember. So when I was like, I think 16, no, it couldn't be 16, it was like 15, something like that. It was whenever the last Harry Potter book came out. So whenever that was, June 6th or something of 2009,
It's very specific.
I think. I'll Google that, see how close I was, see if like the fog cleared and I was able to see it like Mark. Anyway, so it came out, and it was like a Saturday night, and I was reading it through the night, and I remember my dad was like, "Hey, you got to go to bed because we have church in the morning or whatever," and I was like, no, like this is a Harry Potter book. So I was just like, I'm not even gonna bother. So I just kept reading and reading and reading. And I looked at my clock and it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. And both my parents like very regularly worked on the weekend. And so I clearly heard them like wake up and start getting ready for work. And I was like, oh crap. Like I didn't realize I stayed up all night. So I didn't want my dad, like he always came into my room to say bye to me. And so I didn't want him to realize like, that even though he told me 8 hours previous to like go to bed that I had no interest in doing that. So I like, put out my light and like the whole like
the
thing.
Classic I'm sleeping. Your parents thing,
and
right?
It's not even like I would be in trouble. It just wasn't even worth the argument, like it just wasn't even worth having. So I was just like chilled, and he didn't come in, and I kept hearing them getting ready for work. So I was like, okay, that's weird. But I was like wide awake. I wanted to see them out the door. That way I could just keep reading and finish this book. And so, I like waited and waited, and I could still hear them like start breakfast and like do all this stuff. And then I was like, well, if they're not going to come in, like I'm already wide awake, I might as well go see what they're cooking. Right. Like I'm kind of hungry. So I like leave my room and I go towards the living room, and it is absolutely pitch black still. And there is nothing going on. It's a very small house, like where we were. It was like, I think 1,800 square feet. So really small, one story. And everything just died out immediately. Like their voices stopped. The noises of pots and pans just quit. And like everything just from the minute I opened the door. And so like I walked back, their room was kind of adjacent to the kitchen. And so I go and I like knock on their door and I don't get an answer. So then I like kind of creak it open, and they're like, what are you doing? Like, why are you peeking in my door at 6 a.m? I was just like, were you guys like awake? And they're like, no. I was like, were you just making food? No. What the hell just happened? So I go back to my room, and they're passed out. Turns out they didn't even have work that morning. So they had no reason to be up for another couple hours. Nobody had gone to the bathroom, nothing. So I heard their voices like distinctly. I heard them making breakfast. And my dad obviously like is more grumbly. My mom is not. And I heard them exactly. And I even to the point, like I heard them coming down my hallway to say bye to me. So all that happened, and I have no way to explain it. And I've never actually been like, obviously I don't think I'm haunted by my parents. So this is actually what started why I think ghosts might not be like souls. Like I think it may be some form of like imprinting on time, or like a weird loop, or just my own perception has looped. And it's because of that experience. Like I still can't explain that. Like I didn't have a window open. There's nothing that would sound like people getting ready in the morning. Like that's just such a weird thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
So again, not a ghost story, but just one of those things that just makes you think, Hold on. I'm going to see how close I was on that date. What's the last one called? Deathly Hallows?
Yep.
Dang, I was off by like 2 years. July 21st, 07.
I have one more story.
You have one more story. Okay.
One more story.
We have one shocking more story.
One.
Let's go for it. We are going to do another episode, though.
I know.
So we have to ghost hunt and get more stories.
Also, I have a better one that I'm saving for later. It happened here.
Which one?
The one that happened here.
Yeah, that's a really good story.
This one is from when I was a teenager. I was at my best friend's house. I was sleeping over. So backstory to this. When she was in middle school, because this was the coolest ever, her dad was an artist and made her this like SpongeBob themed room, which was like so cool. Like he like painted her walls, and there was like SpongeBob on there. She had a giant SpongeBob toy. She had a SpongeBob phone. She had a giant watch that had SpongeBob on it. Like so cool. So
when you think back to your childhood and you like feel cringy, this poor girl. Oh my gosh.
Yes. She loved her SpongeBob room. But anyways, we hit high school. We were like, this is not cool anymore. You can't have a SpongeBob room. There's nothing cool about this. So her dad painted over it, got rid of most of the SpongeBob stuff. But for some reason, she kept this SpongeBob alarm clock that when it would go off, it would do
this
the
is
like...
Jennifer?
Yes.
I never knew she had a whole SpongeBob room.
Oh yeah, whole SpongeBob room.
Oh man.
So it would do the "Are you ready, kids? Aye, aye, Captain. I can't hear you." Like that's how it started, right? So for some reason, Jennifer decided to keep that alarm clock, but stick it in her bathroom down the hall. And I don't know why. So one night we would always stay up late watching like old
SpongeBob?
No, not SpongeBob. At night they would replay the Jerry Springer that had played that day.
That is not SpongeBob.
So we would like watch Jerry Springer and whatever else came on at 3:00 in the morning on cable television in the early 2000s. Anyways, so we were up doing that, and I think we were actually watching TV at the time, and we hear, "Are you ready, kids? Aye, aye, Captain," from the bathroom when no one's in there. Like her parents are asleep. We're hanging out in the room. So we freak out, of course, because we're like 14-year-old girls. We're screaming, losing it. Parents wake up. They're pissed that we're doing this. So the dad goes in. He's like, "This is ridiculous," and just unplugs it. And so we go back to the room. About 3 minutes later, it does it again. And so then we freak out even more. And it has like, it's one of those that like you can plug in and also has backup batteries. Mm-hmm. So we actually like, we're so freaked out. We like went and found a screwdriver, took out the batteries, and about 10 minutes later, it happened one more time. Ooh. When there were no batteries and it wasn't plugged in. So we literally took it out to the dumpster and attempted to sleep that night, but it didn't work. But can you imagine just like sitting in a dark house and "Are you ready, kids?"
No,
like,
I don't want to imagine that.
It was terrifying. It like that song has changed for me.
God.
It used to remind me of happy childhood moments, and now it reminds me of fear. Because I'm pretty sure we stayed up until I think we stayed up all night that night.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
All right. So, Carol, do you have anything else that happened to you before we wrap?
Sure. I got one more.
Nice.
So my friend Heather, her house, she always said it was haunted, and I was like, yeah, whatever. Everybody seems like they have things. But one day I showed up at her house and I heard, she had like 3 brothers and her mom, and, I heard all their voices and stuff. It's kind of similar to what happened with you, RJ. And I opened the door and everything just went quiet and nobody was there.
See, this has got to be something to that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not people's souls. Like, it can't be. My parents are still alive, at least I hope, unless they're lizard people,
Right?
But yeah,
like, have you ever had that feeling around them?
Yeah.
Way to talk about your in-law.
Yeah. I have that feeling all the time, actually.
His dad listens to the show.
Yeah, he does. That's why I'm making jokes. Maybe he's Bigfoot, not a lizard person. That dude has too much hair to be a lizard.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, no, like I don't know. I mean,
there is the whole theory though that like ghosts can copy voices, right?
Well,
I've
and
heard
demons.
That
Demons can.
Yeah, demons can copy. Yeah, I've heard that before. So
that's true. It could be a demon.
I mean, I don't know where that came from, or how like
okay, but
legit
here's the thing.
It is.
So if a demon followed me around and then was like, I'm really going to get him tonight. He's reading this Harry Potter book, and it's,
he didn't listen to his dad.
Yeah, it's like witchcraft, So this is it. That's how I'm going to get him. I'm going to make him think his parents are making breakfast. That's really going to fuck his shit up. Like, what are you talking about?
You are not very kosher for Canadian radio
it's fine,
right
I'll
now.
bleep it. I did bleeps. They sounded really funny it made us sound really professional.
Oh, okay.
Also, it showed just how horrible you are to me because it was
I was listening to you guys, and Mark walked in, and the bleeps were happening. What's going on?
Rachel's a potty mouth. That's what happened.
Are they fighting?
It's me. I did it.
Huh?
What did I say?
You cussed like 5 times at me, and so I just bleeped it all out because it was funny.
I thought you would take it away.
Huh?
I thought you would take it out.
No, it was too funny. I had to keep it. Anyway. All right, so this has been a very special episode of Skeptical Skeptics. So make sure you follow Carol and her show Retro Late Fee. We plugged it, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago. But yeah, make sure you follow them. It's actually an incredible show. I really wish that I had come up with that idea because it's so good.
Also, thank you, Carol, for coming on our show.
And yes,
thank you guys so much. I mean, honest to God, you're my favorite podcast. So you made my year.
I appreciate it so much because, just so you guys know, Mark and Carol were like respectively the first 2 people to ever tell us like we weren't wasting our time by doing this show.
Yeah, seriously. Like when we first started, every time we would do that whole where you like search like podcast recommendations, right? And we'd like shamelessly plug ourselves. I remember the first time I went to do that and someone was like, hey, does anybody have any recommendations for any like true crime or like whatever, aliens or whatever? And I saw from like Mark, it said Skep Pod. I almost died. I was like, someone recommended us
cried.
to someone else.
Yeah, like for real.
Like, this is amazing.
Well, he was right. He recommended you to me too.
Yeah. We're so grateful for those hard times of starting out a podcast, man. It is so difficult.
It's really rough.
It's just like, what am I even doing for 1 to 4 hours of my week every single week? But
also, how many people's like days am I ruining?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, are you kidding?
That was really the thought. That was like, I feel bad for anyone who tried out our first episodes.
Seriously.
Like, it was such a bad. Well, I'm sure you went through that with Retro Late Fee. Like, everybody, I think every podcast we've talked to goes through that. Just what the hell am I doing moment.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, so hope you guys have a great week. We had a really fun time recording this, so hopefully you enjoyed
really
it.
Fun.
If you did enjoy it, let us know, and let Carol know too. And we will add her on a whole bunch of stuff this week so that you guys can see that. And give us your scary story so we can do this again in like a few months, maybe fewer months. That would be better. Also, if you feel like we missed your story on this episode, it's not because your story wasn't good enough or long enough or anything involving you. It's just because we are disorganized. So please reach out to me and let me know if you feel like we missed out on you. I feel like I got everybody, but there's always that kind of like sneaking suspicion that I missed out on somebody. Or if you gave us your story like well in advance, I just could have missed you. So please let me know if you feel like you missed out. I would love to get you on the next one and make it right. Thank you. So thank you guys and have a good week.
Bye.